Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Project Egg Show. Today, we have the honor of interviewing Jeremy Adams, a Forbes 30 Under 30 recipient, partnered with Shark Tank's Kevin Harrington. That's a founding partner in that company, also currently on the board of Goodwill in Central Florida, I believe. Jeremy, how are you doing? Welcome to the show, and thank you so much for coming on and speaking today.
Yeah, thank you for the great introduction. I'm doing amazing. I actually just turned 29 over the weekend, so we only can use that Forbes 30 Under 30 thing for like another year, and then it'll be like really weird if I keep bringing it up. But yeah, everything's going good, man.
So let's jump right in. What is your story?
So my story, so I'll do my best without being overly cliche and boring everybody. So I grew up relatively low income, like we weren't living on the streets or anything like that, but we lived in a mobile home. We definitely did not have anything fancy. Although my parents weren't really good at making money and we didn't have a solid income, they did work relatively hard. So I feel like I did learn some good work ethic things from my parents, but I just always knew at a young age I wanted to be rich. Like I didn't know what that meant and I know how I was going to do it, but I just wanted to be rich because I was so disgusted, I suppose, with the situation that I had. And not to say that like I'm not grateful for my upbringing. My parents were divorced, but they both got remarried. Like overall solid childhood. Just did not like earn a good living. So I just was very money motivated at a really young age, and started waiting tables when I was 16, which is, I worked at a breakfast place, so you can make good money waiting tables. So in high school, I started making maybe $500, $600, $700 a week, which was really solid cash. And I didn't have many bills. So I thought I was like a god. And then worked at a nicer restaurant when I was 19, made over $1,000 a week cash, and that's almost 10 years ago now. So with inflation, I don't know, what's that, like $5,000 a week now? No, I'm just kidding. I don't know, but it's quite a bit. So learned how to make money. I gained confidence in earning income, which is, I feel, 90% of the battle. Just having the confidence that I deserve good money, I deserve, and I'm capable to make a quality income. So I moved to Orlando when I was 20 from the small town I grew up in. And I started working with a guy in Central Florida that was like a local investor. I was his assistant. So at 20, I was like an assistant for this entrepreneur, and I just learned a lot about business. And then fast forward a couple years, I'd helped him start a few businesses as his assistant. So making a lot of mistakes like normal, but they were all on his dime. And fortunately, it's a great learning experience for me. At 22, I got an opportunity. We started a company that manufactured food trucks, which was my food truck manufacturing company, Prestige Food Trucks, and that did pretty well. I recently sold that in November of 2018. So that was a 6-year-old project. It was like my first real baby that I finally exited. It wasn't a big, glorious exit that I had envisioned as a young entrepreneur, where I was just going to like make money rain from the ceiling. But it was there's a nice earnout, and it was a overall good situation. I was able to move on. And you mentioned the partnership with Kevin. That was a great learning experience. My co-founder of Unicorn, Max, and I exited that partnership 2 years ago and started Unicorn Innovations, just coming up on 2 years ago now. That's been my main focus day to day. And we have a lot of really exciting opportunity that we're really grateful for.
So let's jump back into your childhood. What did your childhood smell like?
I just remember I grew up in the woods, so it smelled a lot like the wilderness, and the opposite of what I viewed a capitalistic society would be. Like I knew it wasn't an area where I could feel abundant and create wealth. It may be a good place once you have wealth to then move and enjoy the wealth and peace and quiet, but I just remember it being very slow, very quiet, peaceful at times. right? But um, I remember I was ready for more excitement.
So you mentioned how, I believe you mentioned that your parents worked really hard, but y'all were not rich growing up. Um, how did that shape your identity as a kid?
Well, and I still am definitely wealth focused, like wealth, like my top five values in life. Wealth is my fifth on the list in order of importance. So it's still important. It's just not my number one. I value freedom, relationships, meaningful experiences, and authenticity above wealth. I feel like up until a few years ago, wealth was my number one, because I felt like that it was such an important component of my life. I thought money was going to just make me happy and change everything. And it did to an extent, but it made me really money focused. Actually, nothing made me, I did it myself, but it created an environment for me where I felt I needed to be financially focused because I was just so unhappy with that current state of not like knowing like if we were going to be able to pay bills, or like, I mean, there were school field trips that I wasn't able to go on because like we didn't have the money for it. Just stuff like that. Like I was just so frustrated with, probably starting in middle school, not being able to get like new shoes when like the school year would come around sometimes, just like little stuff. Again, we weren't living on the streets, but we definitely like maybe lower middle would be the definition, or poor, a little bit poorer than that. I don't know. Yeah, I just was so money focused because I was just tired of all that shit. So that was my identity probably until my mid 20s. And then as I started earning a decent income and creating some financial stability, I realized that there was a lot more to life than money. And that's just been my journey these last few years, is finding that balance of like, of course I want to make a good income. Of course I want to have the nice things that go along with that, but I also want a lot more.
You mentioned how your parents, they worked really hard, right? And I believe you said that you learned how to have a strong work ethic from them. How did they instill those values into you, and how has that value of hard work helped you to get to where you are today?
I mean, they definitely were very supportive of me, and I wouldn't say made me, but they expected me at 16 to have a job. And they're like, if you have free time, you need to be working. Like we worked for everything we had. Like, you know, their parents didn't have money either. So it's not like, so like, I think working was just an expectation. Like anything I did have, which, you know, did have some nice things growing up. Like I always had to work for it. And like, when I have children one day, I mean, it's going to be the same for them. I mean, of course there's going to be a balance. Like, you know, I'm not going to like make them work for their food, but like if they want nice things, and like I'm going to do my best to instill a good work ethic. So um, I feel that was very, very helpful for me. Maybe some intentional, maybe some not intentional, but I never had an expectation that I deserved anything, like millennials oftentimes, which is are classified as entitled. I, I am fortunate to feel like I've just never had that entitlement mentality, at least in my mind. I mean, maybe others would see differently, but I don't feel like I ever have. So,
What was your relationship like with your parents when you were a kid, and how did that evolve over time?
it wasn't, and I do like some of the biggest personal work I do now is diving back into like my relationship as a kid, because I think some of the expectations for me to work hard and how hard they worked and stuff. I mean, we didn't really have a lot of family time, or we weren't super close as a family. And then my parents got divorced when I was a baby, and my mom got remarried to my stepdad, and my dad got remarried. I didn't really see my dad a lot growing up. So we really weren't that close as a kid. And that not having that relationship, there's a lot of effects from that. Maybe some positive, some negative. Maybe some of the positives are that I just whereas was a lot less emotional in business decisions. I was able to move on from things and not get emotionally tied to things. And some of the negatives are the same thing for me, being unable to be super attached romantically or whatever it may be. So as I'm getting older and I just am gaining perspective, I feel like I've been more intentional about reconnecting and trying to build a solid relationship with my parents. With that being said, I'm not one that believes just because people are blood means I owe anybody anything. So I'm also learning that fine balance of being grateful and being appreciative, but just because I'm grateful and appreciative doesn't mean we need to be best friends either. So just learning that whole balance has definitely been an interesting journey for me.
So I'm fascinated by the idea of the journey, right? And how people grow over time, because I believe that we're very dynamic creatures. And I was really interested by what you said about the value of wealth and of money kind of being at the top for a lot of years. And then recently, it kind of shifted, right? And I believe you said it was still in your top 5, but it was number 5. What were some of those pivotal turning points that dropped it lower and lower on the list?
So there's few turning points, but I would just say in general, the more you're focused on survival, I feel the more or the less time you're going to have to maybe focus on purpose and things like that are going to once you start getting the deep thoughts about your motivation and your purpose, I think that's when the tougher times come. If you're just head down, focused on work every week, that's keeping you content. Maybe you're not super happy, but you're definitely avoiding in certain cases maybe some of those deep areas. You're at a neutral state. And I felt my head was down so long for years just trying to make that next dollar. And then once I remember we had a really, really busy month. In my manufacturing company, I was probably 25. We got a big order, probably I think just around $1 million order. It was our biggest order for custom trucks out of the Middle East. And so we took in business, some months you pay yourself, some months you didn't. I didn't have that much stability in that business back then, but we paid ourselves a nice amount that month based on the order size and the partner that I had and me. And I just remember that was enough money because I'd just been living so frugally. That was enough money that I really didn't have to work probably for a few years if I didn't want to. So I had, at that point, that was my first taste of financial freedom. And then I just remember those following weeks, me questioning why I was doing any of it. Because it's why am I working with these people that I don't like, working with a partner that I wasn't a big fan of, dealing with all this stuff from the clients that I just knew wasn't for me. So you just start questioning why you're doing all those things. So once I started earning enough money that was past my break-even point in life, I started really questioning why I was doing any of it. But that was probably my biggest one. It was that busiest month. And I'm just why am I dealing with any of this shit?
Do you feel like, knowing what you know now about, your purpose and starting to, or having come such a long way, understanding yourself and what you truly value, do you think you would have made different decisions with the knowledge you have now if you could go back however many years to when you first really started your entrepreneurial journey?
I feel that the path I did take is I learned, because I don't even think my parents know their purpose beyond working every week, right? And so there's probably no way for me to experience what I'm going through other than the path I took. So I probably wouldn't change it based on that. I mean, still every my parents to this day like live paycheck to paycheck essentially, and that's their purpose. And if I would have never had that greedy, for lack of a better term, but greedy, well-focused, self-centered mindset almost to an extreme, I never would have been able to get over the hurdle that I did. So although it was painful and tough, like it brought me to where I am today, and I am grateful for that.
So I believe you said you went from working as a waiter, a server in the hospitality business, and then you went and maybe interned or worked with an entrepreneur. How did you make that transition? And I'm interested to really know, like, how did you get exposed to entrepreneurship? How did you know to go work with an already successful entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I left a little part out because I was trying to summarize that story in like a Cliff Notes version. When I moved down to Orlando, I got a job at a high-end Japanese place because I got two jobs right when I moved down within the first probably 45 days. I got a job as an intern at an investment firm in the day, which paid me nothing, and so I had no income. So I'm like, I like the experience, but I went back to serving at night. So I got a job at a high-end Japanese place because I knew that would allow me to live, right? So I was actually working at an investment firm for about a year, but just as like an intern in the day, which was good experience. Like they had me cold call and like all this stuff that like I hated at the time, but again, it's just to this day, it gives me confidence over the phone because of it. This guy used to come in. He was like a regular of mine in the Japanese place, and I actually had some pretty good regulars. And we just started talking, and like I told him like that I just wanted more, and I was interested in business, and eventually I started helping him out on some projects. Like I think it was like minimum wage or something, like, or he would pay me like $100 to do like a giant list of tasks or whatever, but it didn't matter because it was just good experience. And then my role with him grew to like that, more of that full-time assistant role. And assistant is like part of the tasks, but I would help him with, like, we're creating new businesses. So it was like filing docs with the state, and we were hiring new people. So I would post job postings online, and we needed marketing. So I figured out how to, like, I was always kind of techie and into gaming and stuff. So like I was pretty comfortable with anything like online based because I kind of lived in that world. So I just helped him out with whatever he needed. So it gave me really good experience to like at least have a base foundation of knowledge to start a company at 22.
When you were working there, doing all those different jobs, what did you start to realize was your gift, the thing that you could do better, or at least had the ability to potentially become the best in the world at?
Back then, I felt I was just really good at being adaptive. Like right now, I don't do too much of like production-based tasks, and it's because it's not something that I get overly excited about. But if I could, or if I had to, I could, and I would constantly be Googling things and YouTubing things. Like I was like self-taught on like Photoshop and like all these things that I just figured out for the purpose. So just being super adaptive and resourceful was kind of what was really big for me back then, because he just needed that utility player that would help him with anything. And I didn't want to let him down. I knew the opportunity was there. So I just would figure it out. And sometimes that would take me an entire weekend of looking into some training to figure out something. And I just knew, I didn't know exactly why I needed to do it, but it just felt good to be able to like learn a task and complete it. So I started doing that. I think the skill set and like where I feel my true genius is today is just being able to like look at tons of pieces of like a business equation and being able to like put them together and like a 1 + 1 = 10 type thing. Like I'm able to like plug the right pieces in together and create the right strategic partnerships that'll benefit both sides more than either of them would have been on their own. And that's what I get the most enjoyment out of. I don't know where that came from, but I do think that that wide range of knowledge and skill, like experience, and like me starting my first company helped me get a like a baseline understanding of all these different parts of the business. So that's probably how I started there. But just from like a strategic, like not so much sales, but like more of a strategic partnership, building a relationship and creating partnerships that just really, really benefit everybody involved is something that I think I'm really good at, and I try to get better at every day.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that is interesting. And I'm actually a huge fan of strategic partnerships. I think that's absolutely like one of the highest leverage things that you can do. How do you first identify, let's say you have a problem, right? And you want to leverage a strategic partnership to solve that problem. How do you identify who would be the best strategic partner for you?
I mean, we're fortunate where we go to lots of different masterminds and events and things of that nature, and like some pretty decent. It's debatable now as we're growing our entrepreneurial career. I feel like I'm going to do a lot less of that in my 30s, but in my 20s, it's been a great place to start building relationships in all different types of industries. And from there, I just look to build solid relationships with people. And I feel like if they're good people, truly, truly good people, which the more relationships I build with people, I feel like I can sense that quicker and quicker. To me, if they're just good people that seem to like if you would want to go have a drink with them and want to have dinner with them and like they're just solid humans, that's more likely of a person that I would bring into a partnership than just a random person online that's probably lying about their success and history anyway. Like someone that's gonna like I actually prefer to be around people and do deals with people that talk about their failures and like where they've messed up in their career and stuff like that, because like any partnership is gonna have those problems, those challenges that you're going to have to overcome. So, just someone that I can just build that solid relationship with. And and then I guess like the skill is also learning like where their perfect role would be. And I don't even know that may be like my mental intellectual property is like, they may think they're best fit for role A, but maybe they're actually best fit for like part of role A, but a role they didn't even think of. Right. And that's kind of what I'm like formulating in my own head.
So it seems like what you do is go and surround yourself with top-notch people and then see who stands out from the crowd, build a relationship with them, understand what their superpower is, even if they may not think that that's the thing that their superpower is, and then engage them in that role. Is that kind of...
Yeah, and build enough trust with them. Like I try to give as much as possible and just look to build trust. I typically wait a while before engaging in any business activities by design, because I just really want to build that relationship and build trust. And I build enough trust where I feel I can influence them to where they would be really excited about a potential partnership. And I can do that with multiple parties and then bring everybody together. So like everybody's super stoked about like working together.
That's awesome. That's a really, really cool and interesting way to go about it. And for everybody who's watching and or listening, I would highly encourage you to actually go back and listen a couple times to what Jeremy said, because there are some serious gems there. And there are a few layers of gems there, and I'm not even sure I caught all of them the first go around. So I'd highly encourage you to go back and listen a couple times. So thank you for sharing that, Jeremy. When you went from working as a server in the hospitality industry, working as an intern, and then working for this entrepreneur, at what point did it click for you where you're like, okay, now's the time, I'm starting my own business, here we go?
Well, this isn't any type of demeaning or insulting way. I think this is just something that all entrepreneurs have to figure out. When I was working for that guy at the time when I was 20, 21, 22. I learned a lot, like on what to do, and I also learned a lot on what not to do, which is really good. And in most situations, you can find one or both of those. And I just remember thinking like he was a smart guy overall, but I learned like he wasn't much smarter than me, or his friends weren't much smarter than me. And I'm like, if they can do it, like not even that I think I'm that smart, but like I thought we're all just on the same playing field at least. And before that, I had put these guys on a pedestal, right? So I realized we're on the same playing field, and if he could do it, I could do it. So that gave me the confidence to just eventually just do my own things. And that's what it took. It took me to realize, it took that experience for me to realize like, hey, these guys have more experience than me, but they don't have a higher talent level than me. They're not more intellectual. They're like, they do a couple things better than me, but I do these things better than them. Like we're not that much different. So just truly believing in the fact and knowing every night that I went to sleep that we're, as humans, almost the same in a sense of like ability to build a business, that gave me enough confidence to just go on my own. I'm like, why wouldn't, and like freedom being one of my values, like in wealth at that time being like my main value, like why wouldn't I want to just do my own thing and control my own destiny at that sense?
What were some of those actionable steps that you took in order to really get that business up and running?
So the food truck manufacturing company started. He actually owned it all, but I was like basically running and managing the company. And this probably wasn't the best way to handle it looking back, but it worked. The company relied on me. So I knew if I walked away, the company would crumble. So I basically told him one day, like, hey, there's something like serious I want to talk about. Like either I get half the company or I walk away. And he didn't like it, but it's probably his fault for like letting, I ran the entire thing. And it was at this point, it was still only like a couple months old. It was so new. So it's probably something he would have done. Like he's like Sharky like that. So he probably would have done a similar type thing. It's basically what I told him. He got really mad about it. By the end of the conversation, he agreed to it. And within the next 72 hours, it was in writing, and that was it. But after I gained that confidence, that's what I did.
And how did you grow the company? How did you go out and get customers and build a team and drive revenue?
Because I came from like a gaming or like techie background, I just like naturally like online marketing was kind of a comfortable transition for me. So I was kind of self-taught, and there's a little bit of competition on like some food truck related terms now, but 6 years ago, even I guess it's like coming up on 7 years ago, is when the food truck industry was like really starting to take off. There was almost no online competition. So we actually started ranking in the first few pages for some top terms like food truck builder, food truck manufacturer, just based off of like literally including those keywords like in image descriptions and on the homepage. I mean, it wasn't like we didn't have like a lot of backlinks or anything like that. It was just very, very simple because there was quite a bit of search volume because the industry was starting to pick up a lot of traction, but there was like no competition on a vendor side. So I was just like some basic self-taught SEO stuff. We started ranking, and from that we started generating leads. And so I would generate the leads, and then people would call, and I would do the sales, and I would close them over the phone. And we grew with online marketing. I mean, that was it. We were like very, very modern. Most of our competitors were like going to trade shows and stuff because they're all like owned by dinosaurs. Because it's just like an older like manufacturing type thing. So we were the solution in the marketplace for people that were looking online.
So at what point did you realize that it was time to move on from that business and sell the business and go on to your next venture? Like, what was that turning point in that business?
One of the biggest mistakes I made in that business was trying to handle the manufacturing myself, which I would say in modern day is trying to do something that just we're not good at. Like my skill set was obviously the lead generation and like some sales skills and stuff like that. I also was managing the manufacturing, which was a giant mistake. So we actually merged with one of our biggest competitors in 2015, which was like probably the best decision I ever made. And it was a gigantic learning lesson for me to just partner with experts. They had the exact opposite problem. They've been in business since 2001. They had the best manufacturing team you could imagine. They just couldn't get more customers, right? It was a perfect partnership. So that was the first lesson for me on partnerships, like to truly value people that are smarter and more talented in different areas. So when we did that, my time freed up tremendously. And that's when we started our partnership with Kevin Harrington, right around that time as like the deal was happening. So which was 4 years ago. I had known Kevin for about a year prior from a thing we met at, but I let him know like, hey, this is what I'm doing with the company. I kind of stayed on top of him and bugged him all the time and said, my time's freeing up. I'd love to help you out any way I can. And we just, I met Max, weirdly enough, my partner. I only known him for a few weeks. And I'm like, hey, do you want to be in a partnership with Kevin Harrington? And he's like, yeah, I guess, that sounds good. So we ended up partnering up, and that was a really good experience too. Our partnership, it was with me, Max, another partner we had that we bought out, and Kevin and Kevin's son, Brian. So it was we work with some big brands, and we're growing really quick, but it was a good experience to like truly get to where we are and know what we want to focus on with Unicorn.
So for those who are not familiar, can you catch us up to speed on exactly what Unicorn does and like some of the cool things that y'all are involved in today?
So Unicorn Innovations, in like one simple way to describe what we do, is we focus on online customer acquisition. So we have our academy side, which Max is really the face of and does a great job with promoting. We have courses and live training content, and we help business owners and marketing professionals more effectively market their business online. Then we have our consulting service, which is our done for you service that we, as we grow, we're working with more and more premium brands and premium clients where we like actually our team will get in and help them market their business, run ads for them. And as we grow and we're getting a lot more opportunities where we're getting equity in these companies and things like that, because acquiring customers is the most valuable thing. So that's one thing we learned from Kevin. He's like, hey, I'm going to help you, but I want a piece of the action. Like, I'm not going to just do it and like not get any long-term benefit. So we don't get equity in every brand we work with, but if there's just like a gigantic brand that can just pay us a lot of cash, we may just do a straight cash deal. But if it's a newer brand, we're getting equity in a lot of those opportunities now. So we're able to really leverage our skill set to help these businesses and protect our long-term future by getting a piece of these companies. So assuming they have a glorious exit one day, or one day maybe we're not even working together on a services basis, we still have ownership in the company for all the work that we did.
So it seems like partnerships keep kind of coming up as a really central theme here. How do you decide which companies to invest your time in to work with? Because I feel like a lot of people think, oh, well, I'll work with anybody who comes in the door. But it seems like y'all are taking a more strategic approach of let's work with companies that are worth our time. And maybe I'm wrong there, and please correct me if I am, but how do you choose those companies to work with that really are worth your time?
So there's two answers to that question. When it's a straight consulting basis where they're just paying us cash, our minimum retainer kind of qualifies them. If they're going to sign our minimum agreement in regards to terms, like, hey, our minimum is a 12-month term. We're going to run all your ads, scale your ads. This is our minimum monthly retainer for us to get involved. which is premium, but we're really good at what we do, and we're always looking to improve. If they're willing to meet our minimum qualifications there, they're very likely, not all the time. We're still selective. If we just don't think we're going to be able to help them, we will turn them down. We do that very regularly, but that's more likely for someone we can work with. On a deal where we're going to get equity in the company, maybe it's a smaller business, not a gigantic brand that can pay us a crazy high retainer. Maybe they can pay us something, but not something like a $100 million company would pay us. We care more about the ownership structure. If we're going to get a piece of equity and we're going to be partners, we want owners we can get along with and that we see eye to eye with. So that's really important for us now. We're having lunch tomorrow with owners of this company that we're really excited to potentially partner with in multiple fashions, and they're great owner operators. We know that if we come in and help grow on the customer acquisition side, they're good dudes that are going to make sure customers are getting taken care of and actually be a good partner for us that we can grow the business. There's a guy, literally, we're just emailing today. I'm a little frustrated. It was an interesting time. I was just dealing with it like an hour before this interview. They have a business that's done no revenue, but they have a lot of inventory and they have kind of a cool product. And they have a weird value on equity. They're like, we don't want to give up equity. And like, if you're not even interested in a partnership level, you have like no revenue in your company. Like if they're not even open-minded to like a partner, if we're going to help grow your business, you don't even want to give up, a reasonable piece. We felt it was very fair. Like that's probably not an abundant-minded partner that
Hello. Hey, you kind of cut
There
out
you
there.
go.
You kind of cut out there. I'm sorry. The last thing we heard was it's probably not an abundant-minded partner.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So yeah, just based off that, I mean, if it's not like the structure was going to be a strict performance-based equity deal, which is very generous. Like, hey, we're only getting equity based on these results. And so again, it's no hard feelings, but someone we want to be business partners with. You know what I mean? Did the audio cut out there?
Yeah. The again, the last thing we heard was a performance-based equity model.
Yeah, I don't know why the audio is cutting out. I apologize. It looks like there's some unstable connection issue. It looks like it's good now. But yeah, it just based on how they act and how they treat us in conversations, and so it's a lot of different things. I mean, at some point maybe we create a specific checklist on what we're looking for and what our minimum requirements are. But to date, it's a combination of like most importantly, I would just say who the owners are and how that's structured, and can we work with them? And then it's like, is this product something we feel we can scale and create value in? Are they well capitalized, things like that. But I would just say like who the people are is number one.
So for aspiring entrepreneurs and people who they've started their business, but they haven't really hit it, haven't really hit the big leagues yet, right? They're just kind of getting started. What do you think is the biggest single piece of knowledge or skill or value add that you can teach them?
There's obviously a lot, right? But I would say for me, it's just expecting that you're going to make mistakes every day, and that's just part of the process. Like, don't get too down on your mistakes. Equally, maybe not get too high on your highs. If you have a great month, like don't go and blow all your money and brag online how cool you are, because it's very likely next month you're like not going to make anything, or get sued and then you don't have any. Like who knows? But I've had everything under the sun. So I'm just staying very down the middle. Like knowing that mistakes are going to happen, knowing that you're going to have success. Don't get extremely emotional and either down or full on yourself either way, and just stay committed to learning. So whether that's books, podcasts, mentors, I consume a lot. I don't read as many business books as I did. I used to just read all business books because, again, all I used to really focus on is the wealth side. Now it's a balance of lots of different things, but I enjoy reading and learning from people that are smarter and more experienced than me.
So when you're looking to the future, right? Because we talked a lot about where you've come from and what you're doing now. When you're looking to the future, what do you see?
Just being able to take all my experiences to date, personal and business, and be able to, help other business owners and use our genius and our years of trial and error to build some long-term wealth positions for ourselves based on getting involved in these companies, as well as helping these business owners. I mean, we've been toying around with our updated company purpose. I have it written on my glass right as I'm looking up right here, but we help business owners create more freedom by helping showcase their genius to the world. I mean, there's so many good products and services out there that, combined with our skill set of scaling ads and generating millions of dollars a month in revenue, they're able to impact so many people. So, continue to leverage like our genius there and everything that we've built to help grow a lot of brands and change people's lives.
When you think about all of the professional accomplishments and achievements in your professional journey, that's pretty incredible. What's happened on the personal side of your life in parallel to all of that entire business journey?
It's been a lot of, at first when I started, like, personal hasn't been a focus maybe since I was like 25. Like, nothing personally for me was really a focus. I wasn't very social. I wasn't really focusing on friendships or quality relationships or health or anything, because I was just so, again, financially focused to a fault. Now what it has done is I think it's much more of a balance for me, and some of the financial success has given me the ability to invest heavily in my personal with coaches, with like I get massages all the time, with like going to the best events and just doing things like that. So I feel like now the more I take care of my personal self and make sure like I'm strong as a person, I'm good as a person, and it just grows the business even more, especially in my world, because I'm handling a lot of the partnerships, right? And like I'm like the person people are talking to before they like put ink to paper and sign a deal. So if I'm not if I don't have good energy, or I'm not really passionate about what I'm doing, or if I'm feeling like shit all the time, like people are going to be able to sense that, and they're not going to be as comfortable to do a deal. So now I feel like it's more of a 50-50, but it's a nice healthy balance. And I think it's also like for many years it maybe like wasn't feeling worthy. Like I like have confidence in myself. Like I know I'm worthy, and I have love for myself. And now the growth is more of like, I just love like seeing all the things uncover, like just to know that there's just always room for improvement too.
Well, Jeremy, I want to thank you so much for coming on the interview today and sharing, about your life and your business and your journey. I just have a few more questions for you, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it on up.
Awesome.
You talked about relationship building and partnerships. And to me, one of the bedrocks of not only those two activities, if you will, but also this show is connection. And I'm really interested in learning your connection, your philosophy on how to build deep, meaningful, and genuine human connection.
So one thing that I've really been trying to do my best on for human connection lately is just accepting people for who they are. I think first and foremost, we're trying to change people or we expect them to be thinking the way you think, I think that adds a lot of tension to any relationship. Romantic, friendship, parental, I feel like is where that comes out a lot. So the biggest thing for me recently is I feel like if I can start building a relationship with somebody and just completely accept who they are today, then that gets like the judgment and me constantly trying to change, like that just makes for a more peaceful start, right? And then I guess for deeper than that, just like being okay with being deeper, like being okay with being vulnerable, sharing things that you may not like feel comfortable sharing all the time. I think I think historically in society, men in particular will train men that like vulnerability is weak. But I actually think and at least in modern society, maybe like vulnerability like 10,000 years ago when there's like tigers and stuff like gonna eat you. I don't know, like maybe that was bad then. So maybe there's like reason that's like thought. But I think vulnerability actually brings strength and builds more trust and actually allows you to have those meaningful relationships.
When do you find yourself most willing to get vulnerable with somebody?
I try to be my true self, like with anybody I'm with. So if with if I don't feel like I can get vulnerable with them, it's probably not somebody I want to be around. And sometimes I don't know exactly why I don't feel comfortable. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not. But I'm at the point, and it's like a cliche term, I'm realizing, but I'm at the point in my life where if it's not somebody I can be truly open and vulnerable with, it's just not somebody I want to like even have in my life on a regular basis. Like, why should I have to have like different people that I like filter myself to and have to worry about like I'm just going to be my true self in all relationships in my life, at least steady relationships. Obviously, like people I see once a month, I like as a business vendor of ours or whatever, like that's different, but like an actual steady personal relationship, like I think you should have that equal level of vulnerability if you're surrounding yourself with the right people that truly care about you.
How do you manage the personal side of business relationships? Like, when you're doing business with somebody, a lot of times you get to spend quality time with them, but it's like, how much do you focus on the business? How much do you focus on the personal? And how do you gauge where you draw that line?
That's a good question. I'm constantly gaining clarity on that every day. I would say the personal relationship is number one for me. And I always I believe to my core that if there's opportunity to do business, it will eventually get uncovered with a strong personal relationship. And then one of the challenges too is the different components of a relationship. So sometimes you may be super close friends with somebody, but it's something, I'm literally dealing with right now with a guy that we work with and a close friend that just spent a week with me. I have to wear different hats, and I'll even preface the conversation saying, hey, I'm going to put on our business hat. This isn't like anything against you personally. This is just business. So I think being very clear and intentional on starting the conversation, saying this is my personal hat, this is my business hat. If you're like one of my friends and mentors, Dave does works with his kids. So he'll have to say sometimes, this is my parent hat, or this is my friend hat, or this is my business hat, right? So I think being intentional with what you're trying to accomplish. So to avoid the personal or that defensiveness, and to avoid as much of that awkwardness and confusion as possible. That's been really helpful for me. Just saying, hey, no matter what happens in business, no, this has nothing to do with our personal relationship.
What's your greatest theory?
I don't even know. I have Like define theory for me in your sense.
Honestly, whatever came to your mind first.
Hmm. So in one of my coaching groups, we always talk about uncovering our genius, not like creating or building a genius. Like every human has like such a great genius, or like genius, maybe in other words, a hidden skill set that they're like really, really good at. And I just believe that if like it was more encouraged to try to like uncover that genius and live through that genius, I just think like humanity as a whole could be on a much greater level.
I think that's an awesome theory, by the way. Um, that's interesting because I think about that a lot. Like, if you're really good at this, but you're spending your time doing this, like those don't really add up. You could be moving so much farther with the same amount of effort if you do uncover it. Do you
Typically, your genius is like not only something you're really good about, but something that like gets you excited to do, like you're passionate about it too. So it's like it's doing something you're really good at and that you're really passionate about. And some people know, some people, for me, it took me a really long time to uncover because I felt I was like such a generalist that I like didn't think I had like any true skill set. And it really took me a long time to uncover that. And I think that's a challenge we go through as humans too, is like we're really self-critical. But once you like uncover it, and I uncover is the key word because we all have it. We're not having to build it. It's uncovered. And like now that I live like on a personal and business level more through that, it's just so much like greater opportunity. And I like what I do a lot more.
Is there anything about yourself, about the tech? You mentioned before that you were a techie kind of guy. You were a gamer. How much of that is still part of your identity?
I mean, I still game probably a few days a week. So maybe not 7 days a week, but it's still nice to like I'm a big FIFA player. I used to play Madden and more first person shooters, but nowadays I play FIFA. It's good just to that competition side of it, the uh like relieving some stress side. I'm a big soccer fan too, so it's still like true to my identity. And again, I think we kind of talked about like being yourself, being vulnerable, being authentic. Like I think it's unfortunate that sometimes people are like almost embarrassed that like, oh, you still play games, you're an adult. It's like, who cares? Like that's what I like to do. Like why should you be embarrassed based on like your interest or hobbies or what makes you feel good, right? So it's still a very big part of my identity.
So, Jeremy, is there anything about yourself that we didn't talk about today that you feel is an important part of who you are? Like, in other words, what did I miss?
I think overall you did a good job of being curious and asking good questions. So I commend you for that. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot you missed. Like I don't like on what comes to mind to share. I I'm not quite certain. Yeah, I mean, I think anything you ask that you didn't cover, I'm happy to answer. But I do feel like I shared a lot of my true honest self. So
So, the this last question, I asked because I'm curious and I want to make sure that we, from an interviewer standpoint, like I want to make sure that this time that we've shared, like we can make the most out of it, right? Um, what question should I be asking you, right? And I'm 24 years old. I have a couple businesses. This show is my greatest passion. what question should I be asking you that I just wouldn't think to ask?
Like asking me in particular or asking anybody you interview?
You in particular.
I don't know. Like I can share, and I don't even know if this is relevant or not, but I plan on, like, it's just a passion project for me. I don't like have any monetization plans at this point, but a podcast of some sort where it's super in-depth, long-form intellectual conversation. And for me, like I'm only gonna have people on that show if like they're willing to be super open and like truly be themselves, not like the fake version of themselves. And like there's a lot of big influencers and quote unquote successful entrepreneurs that give the same interviews, and even when you're around them it's like the same facade, and it's like it's just like how truly willing are you to like be yourself, like truly yourself. And if they're not, or I don't feel like they are, like it's not somebody that I even want to be around really. Like I just like, because who are they trying to like impress really? Like the only people that are attracted to like that mask are like people wearing, other people wearing the masks. But like so at least I don't know how relevant that was to answer your question, but just like are you truly willing to, and this isn't just for the podcast, I would just say for any personal relationships, business relationships, everything.
Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for sharing all that you have, and it's truly been an honor to spend this time with you, and I just want to say thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And for everybody who's watching or listening, I want to thank you all for supporting the show and for sticking with us till the end here. I hope you got a lot out of it, and I just want to say that I love you guys and thank you very much. Yeah, Jeremy, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, if you want to get a hold of me, I always like when I do interviews, because no matter what level in business you are, I mean, if you're respectable and you reach out, I do my best to get back to people. And so like on Instagram, it's Mr. Jeremy C. Adams, or Jeremy at unicorninnovations.com, or you can find me on one of the social channels. And if there's just a not saying, hey, invest in my business or something like that, like I do my best to try to connect with people where I can. So if you do want to connect, if not, that's okay too.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Jeremy, and to everybody who's listening. I'll see you on the next episode.